So the pike press to stand is well and truly a staple exercise in calisthenics that I think everyone should at least aim to progress toward and get maybe in their first year or their second year, depending on where their starting position is at. It helps build up obviously your handstand push-ups, and it's a great kind of first regression before getting that handstand push-up. And it's obviously great to build up the correct technique, the form, and build you toward even planche variations and all those harder push exercises. However, this is one exercise that you cannot get the technique wrong. Other exercises, you can slightly get away with it and still be able to perform the actual exercise. Even if it may not look correct, you can genuinely still do it. But for this exercise, you have to get the joint angles and the technique right. Otherwise, you just simply will not be able to do it. So what we're gonna touch on is obviously those joint angles and how you can make sure you're getting the technique right. And then we're gonna touch on the progression. So what you can do once you get the technique right to start progressing your way through those 6 progressions until you can do that pike press to stand. What I wanna reiterate here though, is you have to make sure that while you're building your strength on these, you are also working on your handstands and just your overall push strength with hard push exercises that are difficult for you, whether it's just simple pike push-ups, chest dips, weighted chest dips, wall handstand push-ups, whatever they may be. Just continue building up your overall strength. To give you a bit of confidence, I've had multiple clients now get it in a matter of weeks. However, they did have decent push strength, but all it is about getting that technique right. And once we got that, their strength, their progressions absolutely skyrocketed, and they got this very quickly. And we progressed to handstand push-ups in a matter of weeks as well, which is so exciting. So let's get into the technique side of things. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna start from their feet up on things you need to make sure that you're actually doing to get this pike press to stand, or all of the progressions around it. So we'll start with the first progression and how to get this correct. So firstly, you have to make sure that you're starting in that triangle position from my hands to my hips to my feet. But from here, you also have to make sure that you're on your toes, and you're on your toes throughout the whole range of motion. Why this is important is because it shifts our weight all the way forward. So that way we can balance our weight forward and back. Because if all of our weight's backwards, we're not getting into any pike press to stand. So shift our weight all the way forward in that triangle. And then from there, the first motion is think forward. Do not think down. You want to think forward. And you think forward while also sucking in your chest bone to create that rounded upper back. While we're doing that, it's gonna help with the progression to getting into that handstand, but also just continuing to shift more weight forward. And it also looks a lot smoother as well. So sucking in your chest bone, and then from here, you absolutely have to keep your elbows over your wrists. If your elbows aren't over your wrists, more weight's gonna go backwards. We aren't shifting that weight forward. You can see a common theme here. Everything is always about shifting more weight forward. So elbows over your wrists, shift your weight forward, and then from there, you should be able to lift, obviously, if you have the strength. If you can't lift off and you feel like your elbows are over your wrists, you're shifting your weight forward, what you're probably lacking is hamstring mobility, because you have to get your hips as high as absolutely possible. If you're starting in this position, good luck trying to lift your legs off. Don't have enough weight forward, so you have to come onto your toes and walk your hands and feet as high as absolutely possible to get those hips high. And then from there, shifting the weight forward is going to be a lot easier. So working on your hamstring mobility is obviously important, but it may require just simply a lot of strength. So what you can do is work through the 6 progressions that we have in this video. Progression number 1. So this one is a simple pike push-up, but all we're doing is we're aiming to get our hips as high as we possibly can in terms of our strength and our mobility. So whether that's all the way down here for you, that's totally fine, or whether you are completely piked, that's great too. But from here, we're just doing normal pike push-ups with the same technique and same form we're focusing on, with a slight pause at the bottom. Just making sure you're thinking about all of the tips and the corrections and cues we mentioned in the first one. While you aren't gonna know whether you are able to balance your weight forward and lift off simply because of the strength, just really aim to make sure that your elbows are over your wrists, you're shifting all of that weight forward. And then when you're ready for progression 2, that's when we will know whether we are balancing our weight forward, because what we're doing is we're starting in the same position, we're coming down, and then from here, we're tucking our knees into our chest and getting to a tucked hold, holding that for 2 seconds and coming back up. I'll show you guys one more time. Shift the weight forward, elbows over our wrists, tuck your knees into your chest and hold that on the bottom, and then come back up. Aim for like 2 to 3 second holds. I think for all of these progressions, best way to go about it. Once you're confident with that one, the next progression isn't too much of a jump, but we are starting to shift a little bit more of that weight backwards as well. So we're in a more of a straddle position now. So straddle the legs as much as you can. Same thing, onto your toes. Get into that bottom stand, but lift the legs off in that straddle. And then come back down. What you can do in this progression as well is you can also aim to try and lift your legs into a bottom straddle stand, back down, into a press. So that is that third progression. The fourth progression, now we're starting to get into that actual pike press to stand. And what you're aiming to do here is just get those legs floating. So we call this a pike push-up float with that 2 to 3 second hold and pressing back up. From there, we can move into that fifth progression, and now we're actually getting into a bottom handstand position. And this is actually really difficult. And if you can get this fifth progression, it's very likely the next progression you'll also get, which is the actual pike press to stand. So the fifth progression is we're getting into that the pike press float, but we're trying to lift our legs up into that bottom stand, holding it for a couple seconds, and then coming back down. Obviously that requires a decent amount of strength. Once you nail that position, it's also gonna really help your handstand push-up. But once you're pretty good with that, I'm very confident the next progression of pike press to stand, you will get in absolutely no time. And what you wanna make sure you're doing is using a little bit of momentum to help leverage getting into that position before you can actually do it. In a perfect world, it's really slow and controlled, it looks beautiful. However, it takes time to build that. So what you can do is obviously use a little bit of momentum, making sure I don't kick anything on the way down. So leveraging a bit of momentum, not going all the way deep, and then pressing into a handstand. You can see how I use my legs to help kick up, and I didn't go all the way down. That really helps. And then over time, you can really slow it down, make it look nice and beautiful, and press into that nice handstand. So obviously it takes time to build strength. I have programs and coaching support in my community. I highly advise jumping in there. Otherwise, keep smashing your training, keep being consistent and adherent with all of the training you're doing week by week. And I promise you will get that pike press to stand and your handstand push-ups and all those harder push exercises. All the best, like, subscribe, follow me on Instagram, all the rest of it. See you guys in the next one. Whew.